Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 34 of Bank to the Future Live. Today, we've got a very timely update, and that is with the economy being as it is. I thought it would be a perfect time to get the co-founders of Vaultoro online. Josh, I've had a long-standing relationship with him. I've met him in many different places around the world. He's been an old school Bitcoiner. We're gonna go through now that Vaultoro is live on the platform. I think it's very timely to discuss some of the trends with the current environment around gold and crypto and everything that's happening in the economy, how that affects Vaultoro, and some of the things they've been up to. So thank you very much for both coming on the show. We've got two guests here today. So why don't you give a quick introduction to yourselves and how you created Vaultoro.
All right, yeah, good to see you again, Simon. And I'm really happy to be back on the platform, and it's really great to see how much Bank to the Future has grown as well, and the community over there. It's fantastic. A little bit about me. I'm Joshua Scigala. This is my brother Philip Scigala.
Hello.
We started Vaultoro for about in 2015 in February. After the Mt. Gox collapse, we started thinking, well, how do we make a better exchange? How do we make full transparent exchange? So we sat down and came up with the Glassbook's transparency protocol. And then we thought, but there's another problem. Everyone was that had fiat on these exchanges, the banks own that fiat. And then if these exchanges go down or anything happens, when they're startups, startups fail. How do you trust these exchanges? And really what we thought, well, let's have the counter asset as gold, physical bullion sitting in a top tier security facility in Switzerland, fully insured and fully audited off of our books and in the client's name. So if anything ever happened to us, the bullion would belong to them and liquidators couldn't touch it. And this is where we started. And since then, we launched the platform. Over 100 and something million euros worth of gold's been traded. We've got 20 plus thousand customers from around the world, and it's a standard order book exchange where they trade. And for the last 5 years, it's just been Bitcoin and physical gold. That's one single pair, and we've done that much trade. So we've been pretty proud of that. And then for the last year, we've rebuilt Vaultoro from the ground up, and really focused on getting some more assets: silver, platinum, palladium, and we'll also be launching, of course, crypto to crypto trading.
Okay, so yeah, so you co-founded it with your brother, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm Philip. We founded the company together. So my expertise is basically from the gold side. Back then, I worked a lot with gold companies before we started Vaultoro, and then my brother came to Europe, and we sat together, said, how can we make it possible to have Bitcoin and gold in a secure way, exchangeable, real physical ownership? And then now we're here.
Yeah. So I do remember, because time and a few years in crypto is a lifetime. So that was about 4 years ago when I remember your whole thing at the time was around the fact that you could create a transparency index, because people, essentially in crypto, we created a way for people to own their own money, spend their own money, and have an accountable money supply that can't be manipulated or changed. But then what we did is we essentially created fractional reserve banking, but in the crypto world, by everybody depositing, I think when Mt. Gox first started, it reached a phase where about 70% of all the Bitcoins that were circulating were held at Mt. Gox. So, we created this environment whereby it turned out that if you had your Bitcoins at Mt. Gox, you don't own them, because if they decided not to allow you to withdraw, it's just like a bank, you couldn't spend them as you would of this centralized entity that was going through challenges as an early adopter. And also it turned out that they were creating more Bitcoins than Bitcoin they had on deposit. So if I remember, the real foundations of Vaultoro changed and evolved as the market's grown. Was your first innovation was that transparency index. Do you want to talk a bit about that and the evolution?
Yeah, exactly. So just to give people an understanding of how this works, it's quite basic. We started looking actually at a lot of the transparency protocols. Peter Todd and Gregory Maxwell came up with a really great one, some of the core developers of Bitcoin, but it was very, very complex. There was a lot of cryptography and a lot of math that would happen through Merkleized hash trees and things like that. And the problem is, your grandma really can't see through that. All they see is a green tick and think, oh, well, I have to trust this crazy math. So we wanted to figure out a way where we could really simplify that, so grandma could look at it. So what we did was we said, right, we give everybody an anonymous ID, and in the back end, only they and of course us Vaultoro would know it because we issued it to them. But what they can do then is log out of the system, and then we publish every anonymous ID with the amount of gold that anonymous ID holds and the amount of Bitcoin. So we don't know that they're checking. So we can't fiddle with those numbers. And because it's every one of the clients there, they can sum up all the creditors and see that the gold, we'll compare that to the cold wallet addresses, which we will also publish, and make sure that the Bitcoin's all there. And then also compare that to the gold vaulting facility statements, the insurance paperwork, and the auditing certificates, and make sure that they align up. So you can audit both the gold and the silver. And on top of that, we have BDO International auditing the vaulting facilities. This is a top 5 auditing firm in the world. And this was a very, very important part for me as well, being a gold bug for both of us. What would we want as people securing the money or diversifying into other physical assets, liquid assets?
Yeah. And if you invest your money somewhere, like in physical gold that is in Switzerland secured, transparency is the number one thing that you want from it, that like how much gold is there, is it insured, and is it trustworthy? Okay.
So you dealt with the transparency industry, and you also said that you come from well, your word, a gold bug background. Tell me, as a gold bug, what did you think of, how did you come across Bitcoin, and how? Tell me about some of those different worlds that we thought that this gold world and Bitcoin world were really aside as a complement, but often we've seen lots of friction between the two, and they seem to often Bitcoiners are often saying gold, downplaying gold, and many gold bugs are downplaying Bitcoin. What is it that you see in the midst of all that?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think the bugs and the crypts need to fight, really, because they both come from the world of real assets, of rare numbers and rare metals, and they work really well together. We cannot forget that the enemy, or the thing that we're fighting here, is a corrupt financial system based on fiat debt printed out of nowhere with interest that doesn't exist. And this is what everybody has to deal with. Plus, the banking regime that everyone's dealing with is legally in fractional reserve. While they go off speculating on all these things, grandma who saved her whole life is then suddenly out of pocket when the bank fails because they're totally intransparent. So Bitcoin allows us to have bearer-based instruments, and so does gold. The thing is that Bitcoin is built for the internet by the internet. It is actually a mathematical model of gold, hence the naming things like mining from Satoshi Nakamoto. But what we really see is that if you have a look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is very, very young, 10 years old. It is extremely volatile. On the other hand, it's very fast to move around. It's very easy to verify. It's divisible down to very, very small amounts, and it's decentralized. Whereas gold is kind of the opposite. It's thousands of years old. It's very, very old. It's very stable in the long term, and compared to other commodities, it's also very stable. But it's very hard to move around. It's quite hard to verify, although the technology is getting very, very good now. But for the person at home, it's kind of hard, and it's not built for the internet to move around. By combining the two of them, you really get a great monetary system. All the stuff that the Austrian economists love about gold, and what they're starting to love about Bitcoin and crypto in general is that they both work very, very well together. So I don't really like this whole us against them, and And Peter Schiff trying to say no, it's backed by nothing or whatever he keeps on going on about. And then on the other side, we've got people like Barry Silbert saying drop gold, it's old, it's finished. A good portfolio is diversified. A good portfolio stays in liquid assets and solid assets.
So the interesting thing is that somebody that found Bitcoin as a result of the flaws in the fiat system and trying to tell people and educate people on that. And yet, I still haven't placed a Bitcoin to gold trade yet. I still think of Bitcoin in terms of its value in dollars. What have we got to do to get over that hurdle? I mean, what is the price of Bitcoin in gold right now? And how do we help people, think differently outside of the dollar paradigm?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question that we actually during our product development also come across a lot. Like how do we make people think different? If you price something that is priced in dollars like gold naturally, and also Bitcoin, how do you combine these two? So in Vaultoro, we try to approach it like from a user perspective. What would like a user see? So we actually also show the dollar price or the euro price, the fiat price of gold and Bitcoin on the same side as comparison. So people get used to the idea how to price gold and Bitcoin. That said, the more Bitcoin gets adopted globally, maybe in the future, I mean, I'm pretty positive about it. We will see actually things maybe priced in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin becomes also really, really valuable and hence more and more stable.
Yeah, and we've seen it a lot over the years of our clients where they start to think about the gram per Bitcoin price, and that's an interesting shift, because this is also one of the challenges that I saw getting into Bitcoin. I wanted to get away from the fiat currency. I wanted to get away from that side. So, but what we kept on seeing is people hedging back into fiat, hedging back to that system. So by having Vaultoro, which actually allows a marketplace or a price discovery system, if you will, against gold, we're hoping that the price in gold per gram to Bitcoin will become more common. We can also see this in the alt market though as well. A lot of people think about alts in sats. They'll talk about Ethereum in how many sats they get per Ethereum. They think about how many Litecoin per Bitcoin and stuff like that. So it's something that will take time, but I feel that it will happen.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us, why would somebody want to trade Bitcoin and gold? What is the use case that you've discovered over the years?
Yeah, so really, we started before stablecoins were even a thing. Vaultoro was launched in 2015. Tether came out a few years after. And why was Tether so popular was because they wanted to jump into a stable asset. If you're a speculator, you want to be able to sleep at night without thinking, oh, what if we drop 20% or whatever? Or you want to go away on a holiday and just park everything. And the problem though with Tether or any stablecoin, I don't mean to pick on Tether, but with stable fiat coins, is that basically you're trusting that a bank is holding this money for them and that it is actually the amount of money. Now, let's say there is 2.8 billion sitting in 2 Malaysian bank accounts on behalf of this stablecoin. Then let's presume that's true. And some auditor said, yep, there's that many euros or dollars sitting there. Well, the auditor can't go further than the bank account. They don't know how liquid the bank actually is. And this is a big issue, because suddenly these banks fail. Because they've speculated wrong, or they had a bail-in and they've got maybe $60,000 insurance on 2.8 billion. I mean, it's really pathetic. They're very intransparent. So, and they're also a lot of the time held in very sort of dubious jurisdictions, or jurisdictions that aren't very solid. And this is where gold really fits in well. Gold can be insured to the whole lot. it's very easy to insure a physical good. And because it's allocated and not on the company's books, we cannot speculate with it. It's just a block of metal sitting in a vault. And so it can be audited very, very easily and well. So we have things that banks cannot do and deliver with these fiat stablecoins. And that's why a lot of people want to hedge in gold, because when they're hedging gold to go away on holiday, they don't only have to worry about the Bitcoin price or the bank failing or the something happening to these stable coins, but they know that they've got an insured asset that if anything happens, it's fully insured and it's fully audited. And this is really a key to why a lot of customers come to us.
Yeah. So the story of stablecoins is actually very interesting, because you probably remember when the announcements were first made about creating a cryptocurrency backed by the dollar. It was like the complete ridicule of the entire crypto community, and everyone was like, "Why would you ever do that? I've never heard anything so ridiculous." And for years, Tether was just another rule that really didn't get any volume or any traction. It was really desperately trying to, create this vision of integration between exchanges, but none of the exchanges would put it in its roadmap, and nobody was interested. But all of a sudden, the whole crypto to crypto market became a thing, and suddenly the world outside Bitcoin became something, and all of these exchanges popped up that were essentially couldn't get bank accounts because it's very challenging. All of us, even if you're regulated, legitimate business, still the challenge in the crypto industry is, even if you're doing everything right, firstly, no bank wants to take the risk profile because it's just a bundle of risk that they don't make much money out of. And secondly, it's a competitor, because at the end of the day, we can say what we like, but everyone's trying to eat the lunch of the banking system for the better of humanity. But the interesting thing that came out of Tether was it was actually made by Binance. Binance came along and created this crypto to crypto exchange.
Bitfinex.
Well, Bitfinex created Tether, but Binance was the one that got traction to Tether.
Right.
But Binance didn't have a bank account for its client funds. It was doing crypto to crypto, and suddenly Bitfinex became the bank for Binance through their relationship.
Amazing.
And then all these other crypto to crypto exchanges came along, and all of them, suddenly the 2017 boom cycle came along. The entire industry outsourced their banking to Bitfinex via Tether. And so we created this phenomenon created to the point now where, Tether is now used very widely across Asia in countries where, they want to actually move money freely and there's less freedom of movement. But if we could rewind the whole time, it seems like, what would you have liked to have seen done differently? Where would you, is the promise of what Tether, at the end of the day, there's still this, and the challenges with Tether has always been a bank. At the end of the day, moving up to $4 billion around a banking system when one bank doesn't want to bank you anymore and you have to get it somewhere else, almost led to having to, request cash and dig it into a ground somewhere in cash or something. So what could have worked differently if this was all done with gold?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good point, because the qualities of Tether, as you said, moving it around freely, that's the number one key feature, and people understand it because of the dollar values sort of back behind it. And that's actually also a key point why we are working since half a year longer now to working on a token that's backed by our physical gold. So basically, if we would have rewound this a couple of years ago, and the regulatory framework would have been there to release a gold token at that point, I'm pretty sure it would have actually done as good as Tether, or why not even better, because as Josh said, that gold is audited in the vault in Switzerland. So yeah, that's because we've been working now on we call it V-Gold, and that's going to be one of the key products of our platform in the next upcoming months.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the banking side of stuff is you know, for us, really, the key is to help people quickly get out of the full risk of the banking system. People don't. A lot of people are starting to wake up to that, especially in Europe, when they've seen Greece, they've seen Cyprus, they've seen Ireland, they've seen now with Brexit, is kind of scary for them too. That what will happen in the future if they're holding euros, or if it's just scary. So if we were to do it again, I feel that we would try to do it on a two-pronged system. Is that we would go with old school banking API to help people just jump into gold for the fiat people, because a lot of us technocrats, we're very comfortable with Bitcoin. We're very comfortable with public and private keys and hardware wallets and all this stuff. But there's a lot of people that just wanted to log into their bank and secure some asset somewhere, and they find it very, very hard. And this is our product, part of what investors are investing in the Bank to the Future campaign is a Vaultoro group of products. One is, of course, Vaultoro, the exchange, the crypto commodities exchange. But the other thing is this API for banks, that banks can easily offer their customers one-click options to buy and sell allocated physical, insured, and audited bullion, sitting in a top-tier vaulting facility in Switzerland. This has been very, very hard for banks to offer because it's too much overhead for them to offer these products. And most retail banks now, they don't really make money. They only make money by offering other products, so insurance and all these other things. And so we're seeing a very, very big market for our technology. You know, just to step it back a bit, a lot of people talk about how antiquated and old the banking system is. You should see the gold system. The gold industry is extremely old. They want you to fax everything through. I'm surprised that they don't have beepers still. You know, it is really an antiquated system. And this is what we at Vaultoro have done is really work on getting rid of inefficiencies in that market, building amazing technology that they can now plug into the banking system to help people that have got a bank account. So let's say how it would work is you would log in to your bank and you see a button there, buying gold. They click buy gold, they say how much they want to buy, boom, it's done. And it automatically opens up a vaulting contract in Switzerland. And these are vaults that only the elite could have access to in the past. You know, these are vaults that have been there for ages, but only really the rich uber elite have had access to them. And now this gives access to the normal working person. And this is really what's important for us, is to allow the normal person to be able to hedge the risk, even if there isn't any problem with the banking system, even if that's all just pie in the sky, there is still a fear of people. There's still people that are scared. All they do is they turn on the news and they get bombarded with fear about the system. So even if it keeps on sailing like it is, there is definitely demand for these sorts of products. So we have the Vaultoro cryptocurrency and gold exchange, which is kind of the future. And then we have this beautiful old school Boolean model. I mean, this is an old model, that business model. It's very well understood. So I feel it's a great investment moving forward. And we've got a great team for that too. And on top of that, then we also have the tokenization of gold. So we have a very good gamut across the very new industry and the very exciting industry of the crypto exchange business, but also the crypto backing business, but now also this banking API business from Bar9.
Okay, so let me try and unpack that a bit. So it seems like you're looking at delivering the complete user experience for people that want to hedge from the traditional financial system. So you've got money at a bank. What do? Well, you're building APIs that allow them to easily get into gold.
Exactly.
Once you're in gold, you are in, you know, a commodity-based system. It operates and works without the traditional financial system. However, sending gold is extremely hard. You know, it exists in somebody else's vault or in your own vault, and you can't chunk. You know, it's very hard to get rid of slices of gold and send them around the world. It's extremely slow, extremely inefficient. But once you're in that, you start to see the benefits of crypto, and maybe you want to take some of your savings in a genuine. So I've often called Bitcoin, it's not a store of value yet. It's a speculative store of value. And because it's a speculative store of value, it means that if Bitcoin does become a store of value, there's ultra high profits to be made in people that believe in that philosophy before it becomes true. And so people that are speculating on whether Bitcoin will become a store of value, because a real store of value is very boring. It actually maintains value. It doesn't go up in value. It's not an investment. It's actually a way of maintaining value. So gold has already achieved that. But however, in terms of with your actual savings, you might want to maintain some value, but you also want to gain some value. And that's where people that gold can kind of believe in, take a speculation on whether Bitcoin can become digital gold. But then at the same time, the innovation of the blockchain technology behind all of this can be used to actually produce these gold-backed stable coins. And then you've got a complete system whereby you can go from fiat into gold. Once you're in gold, you can easily decide how much you want to allocate for store of value, how much you want to allocate for speculative store of value. Benefit from the fact that Bitcoin is the fixed money supply halving next year, all of the economics that make Bitcoin what we all fell in love with. And at the same time, you can send these gold-backed value all around the world and try and create the gold-backed version. Why at this point do you think that a gold-backed cryptocurrency has not got the traction that something like a dollar-backed cryptocurrency has?
I mean, I think a part of it is the denomination. People are used to how much things are in fiat, like how much is a chocolate bar in dollars, if they understand that. So there is that. But I also feel that gold-backed cryptos, some of the competitors that are out there are very, very difficult to use. There's like a 2-token system because they've tried to ICO with an extra coin that does this and then this sends around, and it's kind of difficult. So we're really focusing on a very user-friendly experience of a single token. You just send it, you know what its value is. I think it's, because we weren't the first mover in terms of tokenizing, we got to see what mistakes were made by these and really focus on a proper well-regulated version as well. That's the other thing, is that now regulations are becoming very clear. Up till now, we've been, the gold has been settled on our database, and we've had old school mechanisms like encrypting that database to a third-party law firm, and there's a fourth-party law firm that has the settlement records in case anything happens to us. They're being instructed to come together. So these are these old school mechanisms. But now with tokenization, what you can do is take the instead of sending a PDF, which if you buy allocated gold from a large retailer, usually you get a PDF with the serial number of the bar, the auditor, the name of the auditor, when it was audited last, the insurance, the insurer, and the name of the vaulting facility. This is all in a PDF. The problem is, Simon, I can't send you that PDF, can I? I could send it to multiple people. I can't spend a PDF because it's double spendable. And this is, of course, what tokens solve. So taking all of that information and putting into a token is really interesting because now you can use gold as a medium of exchange.
Yes. And as Josh said, now the regulatory framework becomes clearer, and just winging a gold token out there that for 2 years ago would be just like give no security and no transparency to any of our customers. Would not be possible, but now the time isn't right now.
The time, I've often thought that it's going to take, it's always, unfortunately, innovation in our industry and adoption in our industry has tend to be led by disaster. And one of our goals that we've always tried to achieve before I even started BnkToTheFuture was educating people so that they can start to prepare for things before they actually need it. Because, just look around in the economy right now. We've got these repo markets. The Federal Reserve is the only people lending right now. You look at the entire history of how, we've seen, you mentioned things like Greece and Cyprus. Cyprus was our first level of adoption, beyond the censorship with WikiLeaks and various other things. But now it's all around us. Like there is so much uncertainty. And my fear is that, this adoption is only going to happen when it actually has to, which is the hardest time for it actually to happen. I guess we've been for a decade now building all these tools on top of this innovation, and getting everything ready for when people are actually going to need it. But it seems like it's up until this point, there's just been speculation that have driven people in. But behind all this is a real use case, which is the ability to own your own money, spend your own money, and have a monetary policy that you can rely upon. Gold has those properties. Bitcoin has those properties. And it seems to me that this is about a play on getting everything ready for when the world needs these tools. And most people aren't, they need those tools until they need them.
No, Simon, you really hit the nail on the head there, because we're starting to see the trickle-down effects for the normal person, with the negative interest rates are starting to be passed on from central banks, especially the Central European banks, as well as passing that on to the banks. But the banks are now starting to pass it on to the consumer. And we've seen a couple of banks already starting. It will inevitably pass on to everyone, because the banks will go broke if they don't pass those costs on. And so they'll be passing the negative interest rate. Now, what would you as a consumer rather do? Would you rather pay interest or pay a fee to have money stored in a bank that goes off and speculates with those funds and doesn't, like, you're basically paying someone to go to the casino for you and you don't see any of the winnings? Or would you rather go and use that money to pay for insurance and auditing and hold some physical good that's sitting in a vault, and it's gold. Gold is the second most liquid market in the world under the FX market. I mean, it's a very liquid asset. It's not like property or forestry where when you buy it, it's very hard to liquidate. It takes a long time. Gold can be very easily liquidated because there's always a buyer. And this is really the fundamental of the question. As we see more and more people starting to realize that when they get a bill from the bank, that they're going to have to pay for the privilege to put their money into an account that the bank goes and plays with, rather than, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put my money in some gold that, I pay for as well, but I know I'm paying for insurance and auditing and not for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I've reached the stage in my life now where I don't actually see my money at the bank as my money. I know that if I'm trying to move it, I'm going to have to call the bank. I'm going to have to explain what I'm doing. I'm going to have to provide additional documentation of who I'm spending it with. And at the end of that, if they're happy with how I'm spending it, and if they're happy with what I'm doing with that money, then they might give me the privilege of access to my money. Which is why, when recently I went through the process of trying to purchase a house with Bitcoin. And because the person wasn't ready to accept Bitcoin, which would have been a 10-minute transaction, we had to wait 9 months to get this Bitcoin converted into fiat through the fiat system. Then me providing my entire history of how I didn't receive those funds from the proceeds from crime, trying to prove everything across. And now I've just reached the point where if my money goes into fiat, I just don't see it as my money. I think I'm lucky and privileged if the bank gives me access to those funds. And I think, this is something that more and more people are going to be experiencing. I mean, what have we just seen in Turkey? 3.5 million bank accounts seized or shut down. People woken up to those scenarios. We're seeing it as this, more and more and more. And so anyway, I think, the fact that you guys are doing Bitcoin to gold, it kind of brings out the, the political side of this. But let's get back to the business side. Where are you guys at right now? What's the future? You've got these 3 products. What do you see next? What's next for Vaultoro?
Well, I just want to say, I've just refreshed the Bank to the Future page, and we've just received $210,000 more dollars for the campaign. This is amazing. We've reached the 700K, but of course we're up. We can go up to 2 mil in this round. So that's really fantastic. I'm glad to see people wanting to not only help with our vision of tokenizing the world's assets and making them transparently accessible to everybody, but also to maybe hopefully profit from that as well.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you said. The future is as you mentioned, Turkey and freezing of assets and all these things that can happen these days. Our tokenized gold and our other products will actually come in handy for everyone around the globe to actually have their money in an asset that can't be touched by any bank or any other entity of some sort. Of course, if we would have been there before something happened in Venezuela, who knows? Maybe the crypto world could have changed the whole outcome of this. Now, right now, they're of course, building a bit of crypto right there, but it's another issue. But for our business, we want to grow. We take the funds that we get through the Bank to the Future campaign to further expand our team and get a lot of more customers, attach these 3 products that we have into the right markets with the full banking API basically for the banks to get the customers to our products, to the gold, out of a little bit out of the system, more secure, and this is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Go on, Josh. You're going to say something?
No, it's really exciting for us to see that we have the technology now to help in this to deviate away from the fear of the entire system sort of starting to crumble around, and being able to secure yourself in some gold. And a lot of people ask, look, if it's not in my hands, if it's not my gold sitting at home, then it's not safe. It's not my gold. But the fact of the matter is, if you try to insure gold at home, insurance companies are good at one thing, and that's pricing risk. Pricing risk is what they do. They understand risk better than anybody. And that's why it's almost impossible to insure gold at home. It's possible, but it's very, very, very expensive. And it's very, very cheap in a top tier vaulting facility that we use at Brinks and Pro Aurum in Switzerland. These are solid, massive, very well-established vaulting facilities that they're almost, unless you've got some access to the Ocean's 12 team, you're going to have a problem.
Even then.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask Famida to jump in and see if we've got any questions from the audience, from the live chat. While she's sorting through that, there's we're going to see.
For me, I got to go now. Simon, thanks so much. Josh is going to stay around to answer the question from the community. I have to actually go to another interview right now because of the slight delay we had. And see you soon.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Evan. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Philip.
Yep.
So we're going to have any questions that we got for Josh. Are you there, Famida?
Yes, I am. All right. Just bear with me 1 second. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was very surprised when I refreshed. I thought, hey.
It happens quite often. Like a lot of people wait at Bank to the Future till the end of the campaigns, and people often they're sat there watching. Some people, a lot of our investors, they don't actually engage on the forums, but they read the forums, and so while you might be dealing with a couple of people, a lot of them are reading them, and it's almost like a live business plan, and they're waiting for the right moment. And what is also interesting is sometimes they're just waiting for the timing of when they think the right time to spend their Bitcoin is, because it will be, they get the exchange rate locked in at point of investment. So there's an element of speculation there where someone might want to invest, but they're waiting for the exact right time of when they think the market's topping or what it is, when they're paying with crypto, that is.
Yeah. And for the folks at watching this, it's very, you can still invest. We can take up to 2 mil in this round. It says in the campaign there that's 700K, but we can do more.
Yeah, just so everyone understands how that works, the pitch owner, Joshua in this case, have the right to raise further funding without diluting existing investors. So what that means is that they're selling more equity. It doesn't change the valuation if you've already invested in this funding round. It just means that they're going to allocate more equity to the investors and overfunding. But the rules of the game is that they can close it at any time once it's reached the goal that they would like, and they can close early once it's reached its funding goal in overfunding. For those less familiar. So what have you got for us, Ramina?
Yes, just going off from what you just said there, Simon, just to confirm. So if they do decide to close slightly earlier, how do we inform our investors, or what does that look like to our investors? Do they get a notification to say that Vaultoro is now closed or will be closing in the next 24 hours?
Actually, most of the time is first come, first serve. So if somebody subscribes to all of the remaining allocation that Vaultoro is willing to sell, at some point they're going to say, well, we don't want to sell any more equity, and that will be an instant thing. So we can't give warnings, unfortunately, because it's just first come, first serve. So they can close at any point once they've determined that they're not willing to sell any more equity at this valuation.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to shoot in from the live chat questions. So you may have answered these questions whilst you both were, whilst you were all chatting away, but I'm going to go ahead and ask these questions anyways, just in case something wasn't covered. Can we also trade BTC with USD and gold with USD on Vaultoro?
Not yet. It will be, we are aiming to have a fiat trading pair. It's just that it opens up a can of worms that we would rather open up a little bit later down the track when we have more clarity on certain regulations with fiat and crypto. Saying that, it's definitely in the roadmap, and yeah, it's exciting. One of the other pairs that I find really exciting is trading between Bitcoin and silver. Gold and silver, and seeing those ratios also being traded. The other thing is, of course, Ethereum and Dash. We're big fans of Dash here as well. They've done. They gave us some funding to help them help us integrate Dash as the first a little while ago, and I've really seen some of the great cryptography that they've written for the masternode stuff. It's really quite interesting. We're also really big fans of the Lightning Network, and I don't know, I'm sort of deviating on the question here, but the Bitcoin Lightning Network stuff is also really great and fascinating technology where we've been sponsored. We were the first exchange in the world to actually offer Lightning Network payments almost 2 years ago, and that was so amazing to see, because for the first time you could basically have your funds already committed in the blockchain and then be able to spend them instantly. So you could take orders out of the order book on Vaultoro and buy gold instantly. So you wouldn't have to trust our hot wallet. You could basically see an order in the order book, send it. We have an instant order function. So as soon as the money gets to us, the Bitcoin gets to us, we would put the order in, and or the system would put the order in, and you'd have gold. So just seeing these technologies roll out are really interesting. But yeah, so a lot more trading pairs coming, basically, is the answer, including fiat.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so the next question I have here from the live chat is Vaultoro going to vault somewhere else other than Switzerland anytime soon?
Yeah, definitely. I really like the idea of having voting facilities around the world and being able to trade against them, because what that means, we can start pricing in political risk in these countries. So let's say we have voting facilities in Hong Kong and in Switzerland. Maybe gold in Hong Kong would be cheaper now, and you would start to be able to price political risk into the gold price. And of course, there's always someone on the other side that will say, no, it's fine, I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to buy it back a little bit cheaper. And this is very interesting for us. And also, if you find that, Switzerland's starting to look very authoritarian, which is probably never going to happen. I mean, they've been through 2 world wars and stayed neutral. But if they were, you would start to see that priced into gold as people start selling gold from the Swiss account over to the maybe Singaporean account or Hong Kong account or Australian account, Canadian account, or something like that. So yeah, we definitely have an interest in having different voting facilities trading against each other as well. And this is also very good for our investors, for the company, because the more trading, the better the profit margin.
Cool. So I think a lot of our investors and users, well, they would be thinking, they have been thinking this question. And if you want to comment on this, if you can, it would be good. If you can't, no worries, we understand. But can you comment on the difference of Vaultoro and Anthem Gold business model?
Yeah, Anthem. I've met Anthem a couple of times, I think. In this, we've both been crypto bugs for ages, years and years, and really great guy, and I like his business model. And I think there's enough room for multiple people. In fact, it helps spread the marketing of educating people about the virtues of these products. In terms of differences, we are regulated in Europe. We're trying to be fully regulated in Europe and fully transparent in Europe. We also have our own exchange. So this makes it very liquid, and maybe even we'll have the ability to trade Anthem Gold later down the track. I'm not sure. We've got to think about it. But there's a lot of synergies there that can be used. But the other thing is we've been around since 2015, and so when we do tokenize, the market cap of Vaultoro vGold will be larger than all gold projects combined, because our our users have traded over 100 million euros worth of gold. We've got half a ton of gold sitting in the vault on behalf of our users, and well, not on behalf, it's our users' gold. So I feel that we will be much larger than the Anthem, who are also probably the biggest right now.
Yeah, I'll also chime in that having seen this industry grow from just a few people in a room in a conference to where it got to in 2017 to where it is today and where we think it's going next, we've seen that the real growth in the industry, obviously our big winners at BnkToTheFuture were all the crypto exchanges. There were also some other really highly valuable winners. But crypto exchanges became a thing when there was lots of them and people could arbitrage between them. And so what we've seen, and that's what we're waiting for even in the securities token market. BnkToTheFuture was the first securities business that operated within the crypto sphere. More and more people are interested in securities tokens. It creates so much more opportunity with different players, creating different parts of the ecosystems. And then we can have these security tokens that are going to be liquid, arbitrage, traded across different exchanges. And really the growth of our collaborative effort, this is even in the venture capital industry and even in investment banking. If Facebook goes and IPOs, they don't just go to Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs then underwrites with lots of different investment banks, and the retail banks all lend to each other, apart from right now because they don't want to lend to each other, so the Federal Reserve comes in. But it's an ecosystem, it's an industry, and one thing I've seen is that at all of our BnkToTheFuture portfolio companies, we look for the synergies. We look for the growth, and the more the industry grows, the more one company grows, the more opportunity it opens up for competitors to have different pricing models and stuff. And it's the competitive market that makes this industry what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we really looked at this sector and said, who are the most profitable, what are the killer apps of blockchain? And I've got to say, I mean, it's kind of a joke, but the killer app for blockchain really is events. Number one, but no, apart from that, the killer application for blockchain, it really is trading and speculating at the moment. And this is why exchanges are the most profitable side of this. And this is why it is a very good opportunity to be able to invest in a professional outfit like ours, even if I do say so myself. But also stablecoins. If we look at some of these stablecoins, what an amazing business model. You basically sell for 1 cent over and buy back 1 cent less, and it just happens so much that it's an amazing way of making money. Whereas a lot of the more esoteric or crazy things of bananas on the blockchain, I mean, that's a lot of the blockchain projects out there, they're very, very pie in the sky. They're very, very they're very speculative. I mean, some of them are absolutely available. They are very good investments in terms of if they work, but they're not solid projects that that have a very good chance of working. There are also very good projects out there, but for instance, there are decentralized Ubers, for instance. Great idea, and if it takes off, could be a very good investment. But it's a lot more speculative than going into a solid business like an exchange, I would say.
Yeah, I'd add a fourth industry, a bit of a joke, but definitely one of the most profitable profiting from our sector is lawyers and compliance.
Yes,
definitely a business model that sucked up a lot of money from the crypto industry. And the fifth and sixth before I think we can ever see decentralized applications is decentralized finance. I think that's going to be an industry that's the next great sector, I think, after the cryptocurrency exchanges. The cryptocurrency exchanges still have a lot more growth from our perspective. We're still holding. And then I think it's the disruption in capital markets. We saw a hint of what can be achieved with the ICO boom. That's going to be done in a regulated environment. It's going to take several years. But once you've got cryptocurrency exchanges, the first boom market, then decentralized finance, then I think you're going to see capital markets. And once you have mass adoption for the world of cryptocurrency, then you can start looking at decentralized applications and Ubers and things like that. But it requires everyone to have crypto first, and exchanges are the onboarding drug into crypto.
Absolutely. Yeah, I find it really interesting to talk about a lot of the funding mechanisms. If we look at funding your local Indian restaurant because you really think it's great, this is where I think the problem with a lot of security tokens is just far too much overhead for small business to be able to effectively have an ICO or a regulated ICO, but I think that will get easier and easier as there will become regulations and mechanisms that you have to check off to be able to do something like that. But definitely the technological side, we're already there in terms of being able to create a token. There's a lot of projects where you can create a token very easily and be able to sell that, but it will be the regulators and the countries that allow you to sell those as shares or as profit sharing or as whatever vehicle they choose. That will take a time. And if they don't do it, other countries will, because a regulator just doesn't have time. I mean, imagine if a regulator you had to get a license for every website that was put up on the internet. It just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be able to handle the throughput as a regulator. So to build good systems where you could go through a website and tick boxes and say that, yep, you're liable for this and this if you're scamming people, that would be really good. And all these sorts of things will start to come on board as we move and get more mature in this space, in this funding space. And platforms like BnkToTheFuture really trailblazed this whole revolution in financing. And so I tip my hat to you, Simon, what you've done with BnkToTheFuture, allowing the normal person to be able to invest in high growth potential companies is fantastic.
Well, it's definitely a team effort. So we've got a great team here and a lot of passion for the industry and the sector as well. We back the industry and the industry grew. We're nothing without our investors and without technology, and being brave enough to take on the traditional financial system, just like Vaultoro. So I know we started fairly late. Are we approaching the hour now for me, or have we got a couple more?
Yeah, we've got a few more minutes. I was just actually going to ask one more last question. Actually, we've got quite a few questions, but
you can ask as many questions as you want. I'm fine.
Yeah, Simon, how are you doing for time? What's going on?
I'm all good. Yeah, I know I was late, so let's continue.
All right. Okay, cool. So the next question I actually have for you is, why should anyone buy gold or silver these days?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, gold is a very, very important part of a generalized portfolio. It's not an investment. It shouldn't be seen as an investment. It should be seen as a way to protect wealth. It should be seen as a way that you protect gains that you've already got. And of course, the price does go up a little bit. It does go down. Nothing on earth is stable, but it's definitely something that should be in a portfolio of wealth protection. I mean, it's been around for thousands of years. You know, people talk about the obituary of Bitcoin and how many times it's been announced dead by the mainstream media. Well, I can tell you what, gold has got an obituary that's 3,000 years old, where people have continually claimed it to be dead, but it's still here. I can tell you the high net worth individuals definitely have quite large stakes in bullion because it's so liquid and it's so private and it's so securable and it's impossible to destroy. You could throw it in the ocean and pick it out 1,000 years later, it's still there unrusted. So you know, it isn't going anywhere, and it's a very, very good thing to be able to protect your wealth in something liquid that's not as scary as cryptocurrency.
Thank you for that answer. Simon, how are you feeling for time? In 1 minute, it will actually be 1 hour that we have actually gone live.
Okay, let's take the last question. We'll give a quick answer and then we'll wrap it up.
Great. So I guess the last question here I'm going to choose is, what exactly is the offer that you are offering to investors? I mean, there's another question here that speaks about Vaultoro's products, and people are a bit unsure about what these products are, the group of products that you have. What are the opportunities that you are fundamentally offering our investors?
So we give the final elevator pitch of the Vaultoro products and who it's for.
Yeah, sure. So the basics are that we are building technology to make it easier for people to access bullion, and not only access it, but sell it as well and have it liquid. That goes for crypto, the crypto space, that goes for the fiat space. And so we have these three products, Vaultoro, which is a full exchange, been running for ages. vGold, which will be the tokenization of the gold, so people can be able to not only sell it on Vaultoro, so we can sell it on major exchanges. And this means that our profit will at least triple, we're calculating with, because we just, if we look at people like Gold Money, for instance, they've got around about 2 billion under management, and they have their single portal, they have their single website. Another one is Bullion Vault. They have their website's a single website, and they just deal with fiat. 2 billion under management, something around that. Now, what we want to do is not only offer it on our single website, but imagine being able to sell on websites or exchanges in through wallets at ATMs. And this is all possible because of the tokenization efforts that we're putting a lot of resources into. Like Simon said, a lot of lawyers. And so, yeah, where what someone is buying into is equity in an umbrella company that's building products to make it easy to access, buy and sell bullion and crypto.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much for picking out those questions for me. Thanks for joining us, to the Vaultoro team, and Joshua, who's still with us. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, which meant that your brother had to leave early. But I think that was a really great show, very timely. And I think, you know, over the coming months and years, I think people are going to see a lot of this unfold. So we look forward to always supporting companies like yourself. You've stood the test in time. One of the things to avoid in crypto is those fly-by-night CEOs and founders that are here just for the quick money grab when everything's going well. The ones that we like to back are the ones that are still here during the deep bear markets and have been around, and they're still here. And Vaultoro is certainly one of those, and that's why we're really happy it's past its funding goal, and we look forward to seeing this grow. So that's going to do it for episode 34 of Bank to the Future Live, and we'll see you this time next week. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Famida. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Simon.
Bye-bye.